In honor of Women's History Month, I would just like to say that women are dominating the out of hip-hop and have been for quite a while. Hip-hop has been male-dominated for a very, very long time. And with artists like Latto, Milli, and Megan Thee Stallion coming into the game with their own unique flows, style, tone, and lyricism are a huge part of the reason of why hip-hop is slowly but surely becoming less male-oriented and more female-inclusive, as it always should have been. Since the start of hip-hop in the 1900s, when the general population was still debating if it could even be considered something that was music, and whether or not if it was an honorable or a destructive thing to be a part of, most creators of hip-hop were male. Of course, there were the women who I like to call the founding mothers who paved the way and made a lane for women we see today, like Queen Latifah, MC Lyte, Salt and Pepper, and a few others. But for the ones who actually had some type of traction where people actually knew their music, or at least knew who they were enough to listen to them in the mainstream, could honestly never hold the same weight that their peers did, specifically when it comes to population and numbers and the success that they received. Even as time progressed from the 80s into the 90s and other women like Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, and Missy Elliott came onto the scene and made lanes for themselves, there was still an imbalance in how much male rappers there were compared to how many female rappers there were. So this caused there to be sort of a stereotype or fixation in people's mind that women in hip-hop were always the underdogs and an afterthought that had to follow in their male peers' shadows. This showed up in the ways that they were treated in the industry and viewed by the masses. A lot of people thought that their success wasn't valid and that they would never be taken seriously unless there was some form of cosign from another male artist. Of course, in hip-hop and music in general, other artists co-signing other artists isn't an uncommon or an unfamiliar practice, regardless of gender. But the problem lies when people expect it to happen because of gender. Anytime someone mentions the title rapper, most people's immediate thought is to automatically assume that a rapper would be male, because that's most of what we've seen, so much so that when we mention women in hip-hop, we always have to add that extra handle and describe them as a female rapper, as opposed to just saying, oh, she's a rapper. To be a woman in most male-dominated professions always meant that someone had to always add that extra handle to their already descriptive title.
Women is killing it right now. We are like the most intriguing thing about hip-hop right now.
A lot more women are getting their shine. Everybody's bringing their own personality and flavor to the game.
I feel like hip-hop is not one thing, one sound, one person, one group. It's ever-changing.
From women in hip-hop being the underdogs to now being the ones who dominate, there's a few things that caused the shift. One of them is a change in times. After Lil Kim and Foxy Brown's run in the 90s, there was a long drought as far as mainstream success from female hip-hop artists. You know, there were a few who came along the way, but they weren't exactly hitting the same numbers and breaking the same scales that an artist like Lil Kim or Missy Elliott was doing. But starting from the early 2000s, for 10 years, the space for women in hip-hop in the mainstream had been primarily run by one person, and that person goes by the name of Nicki Minaj.
Okay, I get it. Let me think. I guess it's my turn.
People's first introduction to Nicki in hip-hop was received very well, not only because of her talent and her style reminding them of who Lil Kim used to be in the 90s, but also because during that time, she had no one else's attention to compete with. There was a huge drought for women in the genre, which gave her male peers no choice but to embrace and respect her, not only because of her talent, but also because she brought something that had been missing in mainstream hip-hop for almost a decade. Because of this, she was an inspiration to other women and girls who wanted to rap just like her. Since then, there have been female rappers who have come and went, but the few that were talented enough to withstand the test of time are artists like Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Doja Cat, Latto, and a few others who might eventually become solid figures in hip-hop. And their artistry, as well as a lot of Nicki Minaj's influence, has definitely opened up new possibilities for other female rappers behind them.
Daddy, I'm a bastard, but I'ma still chill on this girl raping Baxter. Went and bought a whip, then I went and bought a chain. I can never be a slave cause I'm owning all my masters. Get it?
All of these women succeeding in hip-hop at the same time is almost like a newfound renaissance that has never been seen or done before in this space. Especially since some people are still stuck in the old way of thinking that there could only be one who can succeed at a time because there's only been one for so long, not allowing them to coexist as individually and as uniquely themselves.
I I think what it means being a woman in hip-hop today is like, when I was younger, of course, I started rapping at like 10, and it wasn't nearly as accepted as it is now. So I feel like it's really important for me to be a part of it right now. I feel like it's an exciting time, and if you're a female rapper in this day and age, you lit.
For years, labels had been dropping the ball when it came to the power and marketability of having successful female rappers in the mainstream. Another reason for the change is because male rappers have just gotten lazy and have become way too comfortable with doing the bare minimum to keep their spot. The way that rappers like Latto, Megan, and Glow can now be heard rapping with passion and enthusiasm, giving you energy that is reminiscent to something that you might hear from somebody that actually takes what they're doing seriously.
When the fuck did all the gangsta niggas turn to groupies? Everybody wanna kick it when you ain't a threat. These niggas don't like me cause they know I'm on their neck.
The beautiful part about it is that a lot of people believe that all female rappers' music are hyper feminized, which couldn't be further from the truth, because there are artists like Glorilla and Tierra who are a little bit closer to the mainstream that do create music that can be heard and enjoyed and listened to by anybody who resonates with it, not just women.
Yeah, glow. Stomp a little pussy hoe with some shell toes. Yeah, glow. Slapping rap bitches and making bail hoe.
But that same energy is not exactly translating over into the male space of hip-hop. I know people who used to turn on Future and Lil Baby to work out that are now starting to slowly shift their workout playlist to be filled with music by a bunch of female rappers, with a few male rappers sprinkled in who actually seem like they care about what they do. I believe male rappers have gotten too comfortable because a lot of people have made them believe that doing the bare minimum will be acceptable as long as they stick to certain standards. It's almost as if a lot of them are okay with being unoriginal, which for an artist isn't a good move. There's not enough gatekeeping in hip-hop, and this is why the space is occupied by so many phonies and talentless people, because the standard for what it means to be a rapper is incredibly low. And it only seems like an issue for our generation because earlier times were a lot tougher because the crowds required real talent and people actually took pride in being original. That's why when I hear so many people say things like old school music was better, that they feel like they were born in the wrong generation as it relates to the entertainment that came from times like the 90s, not just music, but everything. It's because the people who were consuming the music, watching the movies, and going to the shows actually required a top-notch experience, and they cared more about talent than popularity. I think that's where a lot of people now are kind of messing up. And this is just to name a few, but the artists like Lil Baby, like Gunna, like NLE Choppa, and now for me, in my personal opinion, even Drake, their music is just boring. And it didn't start out that way. I don't know exactly what happened along the way other than the fact that they might have just got too comfortable or lost passion for what they're doing. But it's starting to become repetitive and boring because you can hear the low enthusiasm in their music. And a lot of fans are growing tired of wasting time and energy on content that doesn't seem to be created with the same type of hunger, creativity, or drive as when they first started. And they aren't growing as artists. And besides Drake, there's no quality but the other ones that I just named and a few others that can also be added into the category that could ever be used to describe them as superstars. This is not by any means a comparison between these three, but 4 years ago when I seen Lil Baby, DaBaby, and Megan Thee Stallion coming up around the same time, I thought that they were all equally headed to being the new big stars of hip-hop for our generation for different reasons. Other than just being an artist, in order to solidify your status and relationship with your fan base, you have to be able to be loved for specific qualities. Lil Baby had influence, DaBaby had the creativity and charisma, and Megan has her likeness, charisma, and marketability. So I know most people like me thought that by now all three of them would be at a certain area of superstardom. As I'm speaking to you during the creation of this video, March of 2024, only one of those artists who is constantly progressing, and that is Megan Thee Stallion. I mean, I kind of understand why DaBaby fell off a little bit because of his antics and his behavior, as well as, you know, people complaining about him using the same beats over and over. But as big as Lil Baby was in 2020, there's absolutely no reason why he has not significantly progressed since then. Another reason why female rappers are progressing in hip-hop and gaining more traction than ever is because fans are slowly growing tired of the lyrical toxicity and hostility that some male rappers have towards women, especially female fans. Women who like rap music would like to get dressed and get cute to any rapper of any gender, not really caring as long as it sounds good and as long as it makes them feel good in the process, but they can't feel good when they are promoting degrading content toward them in their music. It just doesn't work. Most people underestimate the loyalty and fan power of women in making sure that their female fan base feels seen. And I wish all artists understood this, because this is why rappers and artists like Drake and DaBaby were able to get as popular as they did so quickly, is because they sold us the idea that they were ladies' men. And this is also why once they were seen being disrespectful and hostile and a bit misogynistic towards women in their real lives, which didn't kind of match up with the image that they were selling people, it's a part of the reason why a lot of people are really viewing them in a negative light that they are. You see how that works? You see where I'm going with this? Between the lack of sincerity and the longing for female representation in hip-hop, and many people who love rap music want to listen to women even more, because 90% of them have been successful at catering to their fan base and giving them exactly what they want to hear. With all that being said, being an underdog for so long is the real cause of the inspiration for women to dominate in hip-hop. The way that they have been over-policed and over-criticized made them have to go 10 times harder in order to hone their craft, because of the fact that they are judged 10 times harder. Requiring higher standards is a setup for success, and accepting lower quality is a setup for disappointment. Take example in the way that so many male rappers opt to perform in plain white tees with jeans or just sweats, only to walk from one side of the stage to the next lip-syncing or barely singing to their own songs, and then they call that a performance. Most, and very much emphasis on most, not all, female rappers will more than likely have a whole choreography routine with different costumes, wardrobes, and high energy, actually giving the people who paid to see them a real show.
Girls gotta go 10 times as hard for equal respect with these. You know what I'm saying? It's such an in-depth thing with females. It's like we at rehearsals learning choreography, jumping around on stage in 6-inch heels, sweating out this hour's worth of hair and makeup and costume.
And while many consumers of hip-hop are still comfortable with listening to the same thing and staying loyal to artists who give them nothing, there's a larger number who've gotten tired of the repetitive music, and they are no longer willing to purchase tickets to half-ass perform shows, and a lot of them aren't even bothering to stream their music. Of course, this is not to say that all male rappers are completely off the radar and give bad performances, because it wouldn't be the truth. There are artists like Kendrick Lamar, Tyler the Creator, and as weird as he is, Drake, who actually put on the show the fans pay for. With all of this being the case, you know, the fact that fans have gotten tired of not being properly fed from male rappers and male artists. I'll also say what I said in my Hip Hop is Dying video, that people are just looking for something new. So the recent rise of different genres like Afrobeats coming into play into the mainstream has definitely played a part and a role in people being more comfortable with tuning out of male rappers and more into other spaces, including the support of female rappers in hip-hop, because this is something new, and that's all that people want to see, is something refreshing and something new. So while men in hip-hop have grown comfortable with giving the bare minimum of nothing, the women are flooding us with different styles, capturing flows, and unique storytelling. This is why hip-hop is becoming less male-oriented and more female-dominated, as a lot of fans are tuning out of what's not working and what seems to be passionless, and tuning into the ones who seem to be taking their crafts more seriously, which just so happens to be the girls. Regardless of how you may feel about some of their lyrical content, one thing that cannot be denied is their talent and how far they've taken the title of what it means to be a woman in hip-hop.